in encouraging energy efficiency. That's the reason this subcommittee is undertaking a comprehensive review of the Department of Energy's appliance standard efficiency program to see if there are ways to update and improve upon it. That comprehensive review is ongoing, but in the meantime, we're here today to mark up a very targeted bill that would improve the efficiency regulations affecting ceiling fans. H.R. 3477, the Ceiling Fan Energy Conservation Harmonization Act, was sponsored by North Carolina colleague Richard Hudson, has an all-star cast of bipartisan co-sponsors, including Mr. Rush, Mr. Peters, Mr. Butterfield. Most of you know ceiling fans often come with lights, not always, and thus serve two purposes for consumers. DOE regulates the energy efficiency of both the ceiling fans and the ceiling fan lights, and stringent new standards are scheduled to take effect over the next couple of years, but for some reason, DOE has set the deadline for the ceiling fan light kits in 2019, while the ceiling fan standard takes effect in 2020. H.R. 3477 would take the logical step of aligning the deadlines for ceiling fans and ceiling fan light kits so that both take effect in 2020. That should ease the compliance burden for some manufacturers and may help lower costs for consumers, always a good thing. Although ceiling fan regs may not be the weightiest matter before Congress, for sure, we ought to take every effort and opportunity to streamline the federal regs and help compliance costs. So I urge all my colleagues to vote yes, and I yield back my time on my opening statement. Recognize Mr. Rush, ranking member of the subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding today's hearing. Mr. Chairman, I'm not usually supportive of any attempts to delay efficiency standards. However, today I am not only supporting this bill, H.R. 3477, but I'm also co-sponsor of the bill as well. This bill, Mr. Chairman, which was introduced by Mr. Hudson of North Carolina, would simply extend the compliance deadline for the rule amending the standards for ceiling fan light kits, or CFLKs, to January 21 in the year 2020. This year-long extension would merely align the compliance deadline for the CFLK standards with a separate standard for ceiling fans. As I've stated many times before, Mr. Chairman, when there are opportunities for members of the subcommittee to work together to solve problems in a bipartisan, common sense manner, then I'll always be open and willing and eager to do it. While I have not heard much opposition to this bill, my office has met with several manufacturers concerned with the two competing deadlines for ceiling fans with and without lighting. This bill represents a legislative fix for a minor issue that could result in a major problem for manufacturers and therefore impacting the cost for consumers. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to support this bill, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The chair would note that all opening statements will be made part of the record under unanimous consent. Are there other members wishing to make a verbal statement? Mr. Butterfield? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Pallone, ranking member of the vote. Mr. Butterfield.
Thank you very much, Chairman Upton. Thank you for holding today's subcommittee markup on 3477, the Ceiling Fan Energy Conservation Harmonization Act. This bill, Mr. Chairman, has long been a priority for me, for many of my colleagues and many of my constituents back in North Carolina. My good friend and colleague, Representative Richard Hudson, and I introduced this common sense legislation last summer. The bill would align the compliance dates for two energy efficiency regulations that affect the same product, ceiling fans. These fans are especially important to my constituents in eastern North Carolina who use them as low-cost ways to keep their homes cool during hot and humid summers. Many of those constituents cannot afford air conditioning, or central air and ceiling fans allow them to regulate the temperature while keeping their utility bills low. The two different energy efficiency requirements could result in duplicative testing and labeling of ceiling fans that could lead to higher costs for our consumers. The bill simply streamlines the compliance process, ensures that ceiling fans meet stringent efficiency requirements. I urge my colleagues to support this Hudson Butterfield legislation. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Chairman yields back. Other members wishing to give an opening statement? Chairman, or the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Pallone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The stated purpose of this bill is to align the current 12/19 compliance deadline for the ceiling fan lights kit standard with a separate standard for ceiling fans set for 2020. H.R. 3477 extends the compliance deadline for the rule, amending the standards for ceiling fan light kits to January 21st, 2020, so they both occur at the same time. DOE has determined that increasing efficiency standards for ceiling fan light kits would conserve more energy while also being economically feasible. At the time of our hearing, I said that it was a bill that seems to have no opposition, which is a little surprising considering that new standards for these kits will save money and reduce carbon emissions. I believe that the sooner they're in place, the better for consumers and our environment. While I've heard some concern voiced by smaller retailers, I've heard very little from the environmental community. The bill enjoys support from both sides of the aisle, and its Senate companion passed by unanimous consent, and I expect the bill will move quickly today, paving the way for swift markup by the full committee in the near future. And so thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Chairman yields back. Other members wishing to give an opening statement? Seeing none, Chair will call up H.R. 3477. Ask the clerk to report.
H.R. 3477, offered by Mr. Hudson.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and the bill will be open for amendment at any point. So ordered. Are there any bipartisan amendments to the bill? Seeing none, are there any other amendments? Seeing none, question now occurs on forwarding H.R. 3477 to the full committee. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Ayes appear to have it. And the bill is agreed to, and without objection, the staff is authorized to make technical and confronting changes to the legislation approved by the subcommittee today. So ordered, and without objection, the subcommittee now...
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to insert a letter from the American Lighting Association into the record.
Without objection, it is made part of the record, and it's ordered. Without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.